Episode 46 of the Church Digital Podcast. Jeff here once again, and I got to tell you, I'm excited about this podcast. I do say that a lot. I think I say that about every episode. I'm excited, I'm happy, I'm something. But this is a really cool episode where we dig into mobile apps and whether or not it's effective and worthwhile in churches. And for the conversation, I'm bringing in Matt Welty, who's technology pastor. Is that not like the coolest title ever, technology pastor? For Crossroads Church, a large multi-site church in Cincinnati, Ohio, now Kentucky area. And they're doing some great things, not only within the church, not only with their church online, but with their mobile app. And arguably some of the best things that I've heard in a church mobile app towards creating community that I've ever heard of is going to come up in this conversation. So right off the bat, we're going to put the link to the show notes to the mobile app. You guys should take some time, download the mobile app. We'll include the iOS, the Google, all that. So grab that, download the app, look through it while you're listening to this podcast, because this is an incredible app. They have some incredible functionality in here that's really moving beyond just the reach component, but developing engagement towards creating community, which is far more effective in the mobile scope. And we're going to have tons of conversations through this. Love where we're going here. We've got Ray DiArmas, once again, co-host, online pastor with Christ Fellowship Miami in the conversation. Matt Welty, tech pastor of technology for Crossroads Church up in Cincinnati, and myself, Jeff with theChurch.digital, in a conversation that I'm calling Community via Mobile App. Hey, everybody, here you go. This is new. I've not seen these in you, Ray. What was the story? When did you jump?
Okay, so like I had lost my headphones a while back. I had the Bose earphones and stuff, and they were great. I still got my cups, but these were like my regular drivers on the regular. And so I was like, well, maybe it's time for a change. Let's take a look. And my brother-in-law got the AirPods Pro. So I was like, well, let me ask him if I could borrow them, because everybody I knew who had them was talking about the noise canceling, was talking about how much, they enjoyed it in transparency mode and a whole bunch of stuff. So I was like, well, let me ask Thomas if I could borrow them for a weekend, try online stuff and see if they work out well for me, because $250 still sounds like, to me, it's a ton of money to invest in a set of headphones. It was a lot to splurge, but I had a bunch of like Christmas money and stuff that I was like, all right, well, if I wanted to, I could. So I tried them out, and within one day, I was convinced, because I'm there at a Starbucks and I'm doing church online. People are coming up to me from the campus to talk to me. I turn on transparency mode in a full packed Starbucks. I'm able to have a full-fledged conversation with them with the things in the ear. And it was just next level technology. I was like, this is probably the most innovative. And Jeff and I always talk about this all the time, because we have a love-hate relationship with Apple in terms of their lack of innovation lately. But this right here is probably the most innovative thing they've come out with since the phone. I'm going to go ahead and say that.
You really think so?
Thanks for ruining 100%. My AirPods for me.
I'm sorry, guys.
I love it.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, I'm told, and Jeff, you'd be proud of me. I'm totally nerding out. I got a little silicone case for it and everything.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So Matt, are those version 1 or version 2? What are you floating?
I've got version 1s.
Version 1s.
Yes. So I've got version 1s. I splurged for my wife and got her the wireless charging ones.
Mm-hmm. Dope.
And then the Pros came out, and similarly though, Ray, everyone who has them has said they're worth it. And this is the most I've ever spent on headphones in my life. So I'm not a music guy or an audiophile where I had all this stuff before, but even hearing more stuff like what you just said goes, man, this is how we work now though.
Okay, Matt, you've got version 1. Awesome. I had version 1 too.
Yeah.
I lost version as well. I lost version 1. I lost the AirPods for like 6 weeks. And the day version 2 arrived, I found the version 1 AirPods. Fun story. It's on Facebook. You can find it. But at the end of the day, I've got version 2, which is like this much different than version 1. There's like no difference. Maybe a better battery life. And Siri, which I never really use on my AirPods. No. Shut up, Siri. Yeah. Siri is now like on my iPad going. So I have
the
this
one time
going
she
on.
Hears you is now.
Why didn't they come out with the whole thing, the Pros for version 2? Would have made so much more sense, but not more money. And that's the difference. Apple is screwing you around because they just want people to buy their crap. So they're going to buy version 1, they're going to buy version 2, and then they're going to upgrade to the pros. And at the end of the day, man, there's only so many checks I can write to Apple.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm at the point now where I just firmly believe that they slap early adopters. You know what I'm saying? Like they come out with new products, and if you're an early adopter, you know, you may as well just kind of hang around because you know the best version of it is literally like a year away.
Right.
I hate to say it like that. I mean, that's how I felt about the watch. You know, I bought Apple Watch. I bought version 2. I bought Gen 2, and it was just so bad. You know, like I was like, this has none of the LTE capability. It wasn't even offered then. I was like, it's so dependent on the phone itself that it didn't feel like it improved my life. It just made it worse. It just, all it did was bring more notifications in my life, which I also had a Pebble, which if you know, if you're a fan of wearables, then you already knew about the Pebble, which it was just a color version of that. So it wasn't really like a big deal. So now I'm just not even an Apple Watch fan. I'm just like, no, that's a terrible idea. It's a terrible device. And mind you, it's been the same thing with Apple TV. And Matt, I'm actually a former like Apple Store employee. So like I was like in the religion. I worked for the temple. It was great. It was awesome. But there's so much of that, you know, even for those of us who work there, we were like, yeah, man, they slap early adopters so hard. It's really bad.
Well, to an outsider, it feels like it's changed. So I'm curious what you would say, Ray, as someone who was in it at the beginning. 10 years, I mean, I was a Mac fanboy. So I lined up for the first iPhone, the second one, the 3, the 3G, and I still have them. There's a box in my basement.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
The whole deal.
That's cool.
Like, at some point in the last 10 years, I think you're right. The first versions, the headliner pieces that they released, the early adopters went and got them, but you were paying an early adopter tax. But that wasn't the case originally. You were on the edge using really useful products back in, you know, probably a decade ago.
100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's kind of something that Jeff and I have lamented on the pod, even just kind of discussing it as far as where Apple is and where they've gone. And it's tough because it's so easy to want to blame just the shift from Steve to Tim. I hate to say it like that. Like it's just, you know, like that's the most visible change that you could kind of latch on to. Yeah. But a perfect example of this is, for instance, the new Apple TV streaming service. Show by show, it's the most expensive streaming service out there. Yeah, you're only paying $5 a month, but for 8 shows total, like that's it. And yes, you know, eventually it's going to get better. And whether or not, you know, there's all sorts of rumors like, hey, they might make a play for Sony. They might make a play for this company. Yeah. You know, one of those eventually down the line is going to fall and they're going to go through on that. And it's going to be a great streaming service. But in the meantime, for everybody who's early adopting, it stinks. It is terrible. And it's a bad experience. Yeah. And so, Tim, I know you're listening right now. And I know that there are different algorithms on this. And so please don't crash my old MacBook Air. But it's just one of those things where it's a bad experience early on.
Yeah. Did you ever watch C, that show C, SEE? No. Arguably the worst television I've ever seen in my life. And I'm a radio TV film major that actually produced television like in college. And I'm used to like the college projects. Like it was, I'm watching this and I'm like, this is the worst writing, directing, acting, top to bottom, starring your Aquaman, whatever that guy's name is.
Momoa. Yeah.
Momoa. Like, and it's, and Alfred Woodward, like it was this really rich cast, and I'm like, they have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah, somebody got fired on that though.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was horrible.
Somebody lost their job.
Too much at stake for Apple to phone it in like they are here at this beginning level.
Yeah. As a product guy, I want to empathize with people behind the scenes because Apple is still, if you want to go make a product. Like to be in that environment, how incredible. You have to imagine, like you were saying, Ray, to blame it on, the Steve to Tim transition is the most visible one. There's got to be crazy complex supply chain issues and regulatory, like the last decade of change has probably made it harder to make hardware and software and streaming. So, and yet you have Amazon and Alexa or Amazon and Google, who I think are acting way more competitively in that arena. But they're avoiding it on devices so they can pivot and change way quicker, I think. So
with all this being said, the day that Apple releases the AR augmented reality glasses, I will take back every innovative crack I've ever said. I will be the bleeding edge tax guy buying that, and I will be completely happy. Like,
give us Edith, Apple. Give us Edith.
Yes. Yeah. And it's going to cost you $1,000. I'll probably write the check. I'll find a way. Like I am 100% in on that. My family does not make, like, you don't wear glasses. No, you don't understand
They're not
what's
glasses.
happening here. Yes. I will wear glasses for that. Yeah, I'm good.
That's right.
So Apple, come on, man, bring it home. Forget the car.
Yes.
Forget all this side crap. Like, bring me the AR goggles. Google Glass was ahead of its time. You know, ride that wave and do it right this time. Awesome. That was an incredible sidetrack. Before we get started really into that, man, just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, Crossroads, the ministry of what you guys are doing. Give us the heart kind of who you are.
Yeah, a little background. So I'm honored to be on here, and just among probably the hundreds and thousands of people are just co-learners along the way, because I think we're all standing on the edge, or feel like we're standing on the edge of something and figuring it out together. So excited that any of the small experiments or successes or failures of Crossroads could be used and abused by other people is a really exciting thought to us. I've been at Crossroads for 8 years. Crossroads has been around since 1996, though. We're based in Cincinnati, Ohio, so we're right in the heart of the Midwest. And Brian Tome, our senior pastor, he's a guy from Pittsburgh. He has been founding pastor, still senior pastor. Really, for us, the heartbeat of leading us as a longtime kind of pioneering, adventurous church. So, back at the very beginning, the descriptions of, we want to do church for people who have given up on church, but not on God. We want to go after seekers who, are open to the idea of God, but don't know the language of church, don't know the rules of church, and really remove every barrier in the way of someone hearing about Jesus in a language they understand. So, early on in the 90s, that was great music, free coffee, casual environment. You could bring the coffee into the auditorium. Those things are really common now.
Yeah.
In Cincinnati in the 90s, that was revolutionary. That was on the edge. And the same way with, Brian's sermons, you would come in and you wouldn't feel you were learning about the Bible. You were hearing the gospel, but you weren't doing a Bible study. You were learning about how God applies to your 9 to 5, and so that too at the time just seemed edgy and different from what people were experiencing. And I think it created room for people to invite their friends. So we've grown. We're a multi-site church. We're an online church. We've taken on a lot of different forms of church, but we have 14 different campuses now, physical locations in Ohio and Kentucky. We just recently, a few weeks ago, launched in Columbus, Ohio. So that was sort of our last sort of city push. We have 3 campuses down in Lexington, Kentucky. We merged with a church that was also called Crossroads down there a few years ago. That made the merge. That aspect of the merge was very easy as a result of that. Other parts of it were really challenging, but
at least branding was good.
Branding, yeah, the church was still called Crossroads. So
that's good.
And we, in the last 4 or 5 years, have really tried to step into what does it look like to be culturally current in a digital way. So that for sure includes the native app that we've developed and has taken many forms, online church, community building, starting to merge out on the edges. What does movement look like? What does how does church planning meet home church, meet watch party? So we're trying to learn from as many people as possible. But
that's good.
Yeah, that's a bit of Crossroads.
Yeah. So let me ask, and a lot of what I want to dig into with the podcast is a lot of the kind of the mobile strategy of what you do.
Sure.
We do a lot of church online here in the podcast, and so it'll kind of, I'm sure, bleed into this. But why did you opt to go in-house development with the mobile app? There's lots of other developers that are out there. I'm just kind of curious your heart when digging in mobile. Why did you decide to go in-house?
We love, and at different points in our history, have partnered with almost all of those players. They're doing incredible things. When we decided to develop our own mobile app, we wanted it to have a unique purpose driven by the mission and ministry of Crossroads. So, it's what is the compelling reason to be natively on someone's phone, and not just gives us permission to win in that space, but most apps on people's phone don't get opened. So what is inside of our app that uniquely is worthwhile for someone to open a couple days a week, you know, which is a lot in the mobile app space. And so for us, it had to have a very particular utility. And a lot of the more templated app services do a great job of making your weekend content, your group content. It's a content management system wrapped up in a native app, and it does that exceptionally well. That same content for us is available on mobile web, and we do a great job of making it awesome on mobile. So we needed a reason beyond that, a real utility, and to create that, and I can explain what that is for us, but to create that, we had to go it on our own.
Yeah, so dig into it here. What are some of these features? Because we hear this, we have this conversation all the time, you know, and I've heard it. Church mobile app adoption is less than 10% usage of the church actually uses the mobile app that they're releasing. You know, stats that I've seen in my role as digital pastor and communication directors mirror that in real life, where we get a lot of that traction on Sunday because people want to take sermon notes in it, or they'll want to access the sermon audio or video on Monday, which you can also get on a podcast. You can also get through Church Online or the website. Like, there's a lot of repetitive. So it's not it doesn't have as strong of a strategy point. What have you done with the mobile app there at Crossroads to kind of start to work through that monotonous stuff that they can get other places and really get to the core of making the mobile app unique?
Yeah. Well, our starting point was for the mobile app to be an engagement platform. So it wasn't meant for reach. While you could share it with someone, and that could be a way to introduce someone to Crossroads or Jesus. For us, it was an engagement platform. So for people who are already at Crossroads, we zeroed in on this phrase of how do we help someone create a habit of connecting to God and other people. So many of us who've grown up in churches or had people disciple us, we have maybe a rhythm of a quiet time or morning scripture and prayer. We've learned that, and sometimes so long ago that we forget how that was a habit that was established in us. And most people in our churches today are not reading their Bible. They don't know some of what some of us professional staff Christians we sort of can take for advantage. And so we went, let's create an app that is as habit forming as some of the things that happen in social media, and is as helpful as some of the things happening in the fitness world, and is as user centered as some of those same industries. And let's do that around Bible reading, prayer, reflection. And so the core action inside of our app is just that. So you can read a new chapter of the Bible with the entire church together each day. You can journal on it publicly or privately. One of the key draws of that is that Brian Tome reads that same chapter as you. You get invited into his living room at 6 a.m. in the morning, if you will. As he spends time with God, he's going to journal, and his journal is public. And so you get to scan this chapter of scripture. Imagine if you've never done this in the Bible before. You scan this chapter of scripture, you read the senior pastor's reflection and prayer based on that. And suddenly the bar gets lowered for what spending time with God looks like. You realize, like, oh, that's what he noticed. You go back up to the chapter of scripture, and you're getting reps at doing this kind of thing. And we have, oh gosh, 30, 40, 50 or so mini experiences, we call them. Some of them are gratitude or prayer or thankfulness or worship. We're giving people these small reps in these spiritual disciplines, and then allowing them to pray for each other, and either anonymously or very directly. And so together, those three things, we alternate them, we build variety in, streaks, all kinds of things to very intentionally help that become habit forming. Because that's what we want. We do have the weekend in there. There's group materials in another section. There is content in the app that's helpful to users, but the core action is really about connecting them with God and other people.
That's really good. And it's something unique. I'm looking at the app right now on my device. And first of all, the user interface, it's very simple. So I applaud you guys for that, because one of the hardest things I think to do is to keep the menus and some of the different things happening simple, especially for somebody who's coming in fresh. But it seems very outsider friendly, which I think is awesome from a church perspective, because somebody coming in new to your church, or even, hey, like my mom or my friend sent me this app and told me to download it on my phone. If the first thing I'm seeing is a bunch of information or a bunch of stuff about why I should go to your church, I'm probably automatically rejecting it. So talk through some of the strategy in that.
Oh man. Well, so is it encouraging to hear that it seems easy to use? If I showed you, I mean, we've come a long way. We've been at this for 4 or 5 years. And so we've been learning along the way. Just functionally in our church we feel this way about the weekend. It's not our phrase, but you can belong before you believe. Like you're fully welcome here and can engage before you fully grasp on to what it means to follow Jesus and figure all this stuff out and apply it to your life. Thankfully, or I would have been excluded. So we want the app to function in the same way. We realize that just most people don't have the reps and the track record of following God this way. And so it's gotta be a layup. It can't be too simple. Because it has to believably, I have to believe that it's going to meaningfully help me. So if I open up my Nike Club Fitness app or my Fitbit app it has to be simple enough that I can grasp it, and not so hard that I immediately believe that I'm probably not disciplined enough to do this. And so we want to help people build momentum. And we think there's a funnel. I mean, even old school church had one. You get invited by your friend, that you probably get invited by your friend again and again and again. Eventually you come, and then you might get in a group, and growth and giving and all those kinds of things. Well, all the things we're doing on digital now have just expanded that. And changed it from being a straight line, if it ever was one, to a really squiggly line. But in the app, I don't need you to sign up for the 10 things right away. I need you to have one great moment with God that leads to the next one that becomes more transformative. And early on, we would use the phrase, if you don't count it, you can't grow it. So in old school church metrics, obviously, and they're still critically important because they're such a big part of the movement, butts and seats and giving and groups, those are key metrics, and they are still, I think, really good indicators of the health of the church, but they're incomplete. They're becoming more incomplete. There's other ones to have in there. And so when we started down the digital route, it's really uncomfortable, but you start talking about minutes of engagement or session lengths, and they're usually shorter than an hour church service, and or daily active users or monthly active users. And so retention rates, all these things are foreign to us, but as we get to know them, we would just always say, if you don't count it, you can't grow it. So if I don't count your very minimal first experience as being valuable to you, then I can't grow it into more deeper engagement. And so even if you just open the app and you just read scripture and then you close the app, and your quiet time, so to speak, was 1.5 minutes long today, I want to count it so that I can partner with you to grow it. And that's what we try to do inside the app, and make it repetitive in that way.
There's a lot of questions right now because there was like the app craze, right? Apple releases in the App Store, Google Play becomes a thing, and then every church has the capability of getting an app and getting on your phone. Now I kind of hear the pendulum swinging the other direction. One of my biggest concerns always is creating separate databases. How have you guys made sure that both the app and your church database have played in the same ballpark?
Oh man, so we get to get a little technical. Well, it's challenging. So that becomes a challenge because most churches, us included, want to build and move fast. And so when you do that, to deliver value to people, it's not immaturity. It's just, we want to have as most impact as quickly as possible. So your databases usually diverge instead of coming together. So we have done a little bit of that over the years. We are actually just starting as a church where there's a thing called master data management. So we've just found ourselves like many churches. We've got what happens in the app, what happens in our church database. We use Hubspot for marketing communications. We've got, there's maybe 3 or 5 other places where data can both be created and stored. And so there's a complex process to figure out where the source of truth is, and how to keep that data really clean. We're learning how to do that. We have mostly kept the data from the app and the church management system up to this point as separate. And part of the why behind that is it's been 2 different types of data. So because we've limited what happens inside of the native app, that's mostly what's called clickstream or behavior data, the activity that someone is doing. But it's not collecting a whole lot of form responses or demographic data, things that would typically be stored in a church management system, signing up to serve, joining a group. And so we've been able to live with the separation. But along the way, whenever we want, we can sync that data up because users have unique identifiers, and we've set ourselves up so we're not too far behind when the time comes. But we're actually about to switch over shared authentication so that both systems are sharing the same authentication. That'll help us connect the data in the background. We're going to get lots of value out of that. So really, and the point is not so much to make that easy on us, though that's great because we can use church resources really efficiently. It's so we can know you as a person, no matter where you show up in the church, and honor you.
Yeah, so I want to follow a rabbit trail. I don't want to go too deep here. What are you specifically using HubSpot for? I love HubSpot, and I hear occasionally churches using it, and so I'm just curious. Practicalities. What's HubSpot look like?
Yeah, HubSpot is predominantly our email tool. So all of our church email communication goes through HubSpot. So that includes, think marketing emails, but also just here's your quarterly statement. All of that flows through HubSpot. It is used a little bit for lead generation as well. So subscribe to the weekly digest, the content digest, fill out this form to download a resource or something. And so then we can put you on a drip campaign, for lack of a better description. And so we've used it for that. We just recently did the 90-day tithe challenge test. Lots of churches have done this. It's brilliant. We just did this as a church, and so we used HubSpot was a key part of. After someone signs up for the 90-day tithe test, they were in an email campaign that helps engage them with resources and encouragement. And so it's a tool that helps us stay engaged with people for sure. It talks great with other systems too. So we use a system called Intercom for what we would call community care. So if you go to our website and you want to chat, you want to pray, you want to know something about Crossroads or how to get connected, the people using that system use Intercom. That flows with HubSpot. In the whole goal being, how can we know and care for you better? And these are systems that they take time to set up, but they help you do that, especially at scale when churches are trying to do this when they can't see everybody.
Yeah. And so that Intercom, that's Intercom IO. It's the thing that's the little help thing down at the bottom of the website, bottom right. I love that. I'm curious towards this. This is so not mobile app, but this is just such a good conversation. Who responds on Intercom IO? Is it your staff? Is it front desk? What's the interaction point?
Yeah, so some folks that used to be on what would have been called the front desk team are now on the community care team. And so staff respond and some volunteers. So we have some trained, vetted volunteers. And it's really, when you think about online church or distributed church, when you can train and trust volunteers, no matter where they are or what time of day it is, it's an incredible serving opportunity where they're needed and known, and they're doing some incredible work. So it's staff and volunteers. But then sometimes the great thing about those systems is we can help someone best through a bot. So we can predict. So we set this up every week. Tiara Wade, who runs this team, is brilliant. So the announcements that happen on the weekend are built into that chat module on web. And so when someone starts a chat, we can assume that a lot of those people are coming with questions about baptisms because we just talked about it on Sunday. So instead of having to make someone engage with someone, which some people love to do, but a lot of people don't, we meet them right there with, do you have a question about baptism? Oh, yep, I do. And so we're very quickly getting people to the information they need through those. But you say it's different than mobile, and it is, but it's all one user experience. So you can't silo them for the people who we're trying to serve because we're one Crossroads to them. So there's an expectation for all of this to kind of work seamlessly together to the person in the seat.
That's good.
So let's dig into that because it is all one experience. But I assume what you want to try to do is separate it. And so some platforms have some responsibilities, some platforms have the others. And yes, you want them to try to align towards the common goal. In campaigns, there's overlap towards that. But in context of website, in context of mobile app, and even in social media, as you're looking at some of the digital communication pieces, there's different components and different parts towards that. How do you separate what's what's a mobile app functionality versus, mobile web or website in general? Like, how does that kind of intermix and play together?
Yeah, I think there's more than one right answer to this question, but for us, I think about it as every platform or tool has to have a primary purpose, and then it can have secondary benefits. So the primary purpose of the app is to help someone create a habit of connecting with God. The secondary benefits are they can also catch the weekend, and they can read an article, and they can follow some people. Like there are many secondary benefits. On the web, the mobile web, which is how most people are experiencing the web. So I guess that's why I qualify it to mobile web. It's great for setting things up. So I personally think about signing up to serve, especially for the first time, registering for a camp, volunteering. There's all kinds of giving even. And if I'm setting those things up, web is great at guiding people through those experiences. And managing myself, in a sense, happens really nicely in the web. But many of the secondary benefits overlap between platforms. For me, you then start to look at what can uniquely happen in one platform better or worse than another. And so for sure, in a native app, you can create way more tightly controlled immersive experiences than on the web. It is a coded box where you control everything that happens in it. On the web, you're dealing with lots of moving standards, depending on the browser someone's in, the phone they're on, the font package they have, whatever it might be. So you have to be really flexible and resilient on the web. In the app, I can build an exceptionally tight morning quiet time with God experience that includes a song, and then form completion around thankfulness, and walk someone through the Lord's Prayer and teach them how to pray in an immersive way. But on the web, you compromise. You can do it there 100%, but you have to make some compromises in the experience of it. It's not different from why many of us now build our auditoriums in large black boxes. They're not standard church sanctuaries anymore that are static and hard to change. We want control over the whole experience. When we switch to the next weekend series, people walk in and the entire thing might look different. Where there's that moment in service that you want the music and the lights and the teaching and the whole thing to come together. That I sort of equate that to there's something similar that you can do in a native app, but you can't do it just for fun. You have to have a very express purpose for it, just like in a weekend service. You got to be doing something on purpose to move someone forward. And if you do, then those platforms work really well for it.
Yeah. So having that level of control, probably in that immersive experience, that takes resourcing, that takes content, that takes buy-in from leadership. I mean, you just, some of the things you mentioned, having articles that would be included in that. Was I understanding that your pastor literally journals in the app daily and makes it public so people so you have a lot of buy-in towards this. What is that? How'd you get there? I can give you names of people who have been down this road and not have that success. So, dude, what's the secret?
Oh man, Brian Tome. I mean, so our senior pastor, Brian, like we're just an aggressive church. Like it's in his DNA and he's reproduced it in us. And so whatever it looks like to introduce people to Jesus in a language they understand, what it looked like 20 years ago was one thing. What it looks like today is you're in their pocket and you're with them in the moments where they want to engage with you. And he's incredibly permissioning. So even before he got it and understood it, I think this is how he would explain it too. He was very trusting to a group of us to go, okay, there's something here. There's a way that we can get in front of people and not just talk at them, but actually engage them. And so it for sure took time, but over time, as even the app reviews read more like testimonials, which is just to how, like, I mean, you can ready the horse for battle and the victory belongs to the Lord. You can build that mobile app, but you can't make it change anybody's life. And so there's a God factor here, thank goodness, where he comes in and he uses it in the exact moments that people need it. But we started seeing life change and we started seeing deeper engagement. And so that gets buy-in, and it takes time, and it often feels like 2 steps forward, 1 step back for all of us, because you're up on the edge, like we talked about, and you're not always sure if what you're doing is the right thing to do. Especially because so many of us have just been so steeped in a particular way of engaging in church and growing spiritually, that trying some of these new things can feel like, is this healthy for people? Is this nutritious for people? Is this good for them? I grew up so totally differently. How would we do this? And so it takes trial and error, but he does. He's in there every morning. And it's also, though, what an incredible opportunity if you could help disciple thousands of people at once. I had a guy who brought me into his morning routine, showed me how he read the Bible. I got to do it with him for a while. Brian can't do that with 10,000 people, but now he can. And so there's the modeling that can happen that we want to lead to real relationship too. But you're leveling people into that experience to go like, I feel like I belong at this church. I'm given a level of access and transparency to the senior pastor guy. I like what he does on the weekend. I'm getting his morning routine. These people I haven't even met yet are praying for me. I get to pray for them. I've already contributed to the community, maybe before I've ever joined a group or done a Bible study or given $1. So people can belong, and increasingly, because we count it, we can grow it, and we can walk with them and guide them towards deeper levels of engagement in the church. That look like, now I'm attending on the weekend, I'm in a group, I've started to tithe, all of those kinds of things. But it begins, we just recognize now, it's not church specific, it's everywhere in our culture. It begins in these very small micro moments where people they're testing. They're testing you, can I trust you? Is this gonna work for me? I've tried things like this before. Is this one different enough that I believe it might actually help me?
Tell me about the content creation side on that. Is your senior pastor legitimately, is Brian like every day writing into the CMS and it's direct out to the people? Is there like, is he like a week ahead and then it's like, hey, we're going back? And I'm not trying to, duck behind and like reveal the wizard behind the curtain or anything like that. Yeah. It's just, it's really powerful. It's really powerful to see that somebody would share this much of their own personal relationship with the Lord, with their congregation. And, honestly, even if we were like, because there's I'm not even a perfectionist, but there's the part of me that's like, man, I'd rather be a week ahead so I could review it, take a look at like the grammar structure, blah, 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 blah. There's that part of me, but then there's the other part of me of, oh man, but this is vulnerable and transparent and authentic and powerful. So,
I love that question. Brian, so if we play this out, Brian is a user in the app like everyone else. So I have that same ability to make my journal public, and every community pastor and every community member has that. And so Brian's not going into a CMS, Brian's going into the app the same way you guys, you just downloaded it today, you could go do a public journal reflection. Now we have set it up so that Brian in particular, and then our community pastors, if they journal publicly, they'll always sort to the top, because these are the shepherds and leaders of our community. And so we want people to catch them first. It's entirely unscripted and it's in the morning. So Brian was just on a bike trip. He was out west and he couldn't do it. He didn't have cell service. No problem. He's gone for a week, which is also awesome because it's him authentically doing it. It's not a content stream. It's the guy spending his time with God. And I think that's what makes it real and not, it's not like a quote that comes across Twitter. It's actually him participating, what I think is powerfully, in the same exact way that you would. So you can actually, you can model it, which is great. It means though that the grammar is bad and words are spelled wrong. And which is great about that is it's him. Like it's right for the platform. Like, so he has an editor for his books, but this isn't a book. This is, him spending time with God.
Some communications director somewhere is freaking out, I'm sure, but
his name's Ben Stapley and he's pulling the ripcord on the airplane right now.
This is where I go like, okay, so get some of this buy-in, go download Crossroads Anywhere, read a screenshot a few of Brian's journals, because I think it's a powerful example of a leader not being in a black box, not being inaccessible. And we desperately need that. If you could just rewind in your minds what it was like when you first met Jesus and were trying to figure this stuff out, you need someone who's able to just pull the curtain back. And so often in our, just the way the system is kind of stacked against us in terms of communities and people who are trying to lead lots of people, there's so much expectation for polish and there's so little room for mistake. And I think we get into the spot where we start performing more than we start giving access and really helping people grow.
It's good.
The app, again, is this, it's not private by any means, but it allows that kind of intimacy, which is great.
One of the coolest things that I've ever heard in context of a church mobile app you guys are doing, and it was this in context of close the loop thing, where you were talking about the how you guys handle prayer requests. Can you just detail for the podcast, like how prayer requests work in context of the app there at Crossroads?
Again, probably the best experience would be to jump in and try it. But what we did, and it's happened in stages, we created a way for people to share anonymous prayer requests. And then anyone, well, actually, stage one was we created a digital pace list, is what we call it. Brian taught us about pace lists a long time ago. It's the Post-it note of people you're praying for that you put by your toothpaste mirror. So when you brush your teeth, you're praying for people, which is great. It's an easy way to daily pray for the things you want to see God move in. So we just took that same concept and we said, let's give people the ability to create a prayer list, pace list inside the app. The next phase was, let's let people send those prayer requests out to the community. And they could do that anonymously. And we started to have people pray for each other. And when your prayer was prayed for, you would get a push notification that said, someone just prayed for your prayer request, which is this incredibly simple on the surface, but incredibly meaningful moment to suddenly realize that you have access to thousands of people who could pray for your thing. And even if you don't know them, it's a connective experience that can lead to belonging and real relationship. So then we just upped the game from there and there. So then you were able to share it publicly with your name and face and your profile picture. We added the ability to friend and follow people. So I have prayer requests that are sent directly to people in my guys group. They're private, they're things I'm asking for God, but I send them directly to those people. I have prayer requests that I share to the whole community because I want as many people as possible to pray for these things. And sometimes I have prayer requests that are anonymous. They're not connected to my name or face, but I want to take the risk of praying for those things perhaps. And those same push notifications were happening and we were seeing more and more people pray. But the moment that we started, hockey stick growth is an exaggeration, but we saw a jump in the number of people engaging in prayer was when, Jeff, we closed the loop. That was just the name we gave to it. We created another push notification. So now I have the ability to mark a prayer request as being answered. When I do that, every person who has ever prayed for that prayer request, whether it was a day ago or a year ago, gets a push notification that moment saying a prayer you prayed for has been marked as answered. Closing that loop skyrocketed prayer requests. And so there's 115 or so thousand prayers prayed each month now inside the app.
Wow, wait. 115,000. How big is Crossroads?
We've right now we're probably at 24,000 people physically inside of our buildings, another 7,000 online. Yeah.
So let's assume all of them. On average, 3 prayer requests per that's still a substantial. And I know it's not everybody, but that's awesome.
It's not everybody. But that, even knowing that it's not everybody, because it's true, not everyone's active in the app. It means that for the people who are active in the app, prayer is one of the most used, most connective, and one of the biggest reasons people come back in and continue to engage.
Wow.
And you then start to hear stories of people getting that notification. You feel like God used you. And that's true when you pray. And it's crazy to think that we would ever need validation from a push notification on your phone. But it is incredibly powerful to do that. And we get incredible stories, God stories of, I send my prayer request. I'm sitting in the office of the doctors waiting for the diagnosis. And I start getting push notifications saying, my prayer is being prayed for. My prayer is being prayed for. people are with you, even
Mhm.
though you might be in an entirely different state or place. We found one of the main reasons when people download the app, if they start doing prayer, they stay in the app. And we're using, really, God is at work. And you can see how we're mirroring all of the same reasons other apps bring people back in. It's not just for content, because I can go back in the app whenever I want to see the content. The content will always be there. I go back in the app because my friend Jeff just sent a prayer request, or because Ray's prayer request was marked as answered. Do I want to go back in and pray for more prayer requests? You bet I do. Hold on, I want to jump back in. So it's users, people creating value for each other, not just the church pushing content out to people. And people come back for people. That's why the church is the community.
That's right.
And to have that happening inside of a digital platform, even in this very infant stage that it's in, is really promising for how the church can continue to live in to this technology future in a way that doesn't sacrifice, but might actually enhance and make more accessible so many of the great parts of being in the church.
Yeah, there's definitely, I mean, we use the term high tech, high touch. The more technology that we use, the more that we need to respond with a tangible, personal, non-automated response. This idea of the notifications can, within prayer requests, continue to driving, hey, our prayers matter and they're being effective, whether it's 1 to 2 weeks or a year or whatever down the road. That's phenomenal. One of the things that I love, and seriously, I think that's the coolest thing I've ever heard in context of a church mobile app, because it does continue that engagement in an area where we don't, we can pray for a prayer request a year ago and not and forget about it. It's almost like out of sight, out of mind. And to know that there's a conclusion to that story to close the loop on it. It's just phenomenal.
Well, I just think as a community pastor of one of our sites where there's thousands of people, like, when, to your point, with the best of intentions, someone comes up to me with a prayer request, I'm not a community pastor, but if I put myself in that spot, I'm going to pray for them right in that moment, because if I don't, I'm going to forget. And even having done that, which is exceptionally caring and meaningful, I'm likely to forget about that a week later or a month later. What the app allows us to do is do that high tech, high touch. I can now grab that prayer request, put it on my paste list. I can even ask that guy, okay, can I put this in here and then send it out anonymously? Can we get some other people praying for you? Now, as I get those push notifications, the next time I see that person in the atrium, I get to walk up to them, and my memory's jogged. I haven't spent all the calories trying to keep it top of mind. The app has brought it back and allowed me to very meaningfully and thoughtfully care for somebody in a moment. And that's what we want. The technology should reduce the friction to the people on people, the real connective part of the church.
Yeah. But what's really interesting in this is you actually told the story in context of going all the way back to your toothpaste lists and how there's a process of growth. So somewhere out there, someone in the audience right now is thinking, because this would totally be me if I was on church staff, I want this feature in my app as soon as possible. So I'm going to go now walk into my leadership and say, hey, we want to scratch XYZ templated app. Instead, we're going to do this thing completely in-house. We're going to hire developers and let's get this in place by Easter, because, you have to have it in place by Easter.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, obviously,
you might as well wait until next year then.
You might as well wait till next Easter, and there's like 52 weeks in between then. And then honestly, like that's who I am. And there's a reason why I don't work on church staffs anymore. It's related to that. So, but here's my thing. How long was it from the toothpaste list to today, to when that rolled out?
Question.
Like, what's the span of time? Because an idea grows. It's not like hurled.
Oh, well, it has to. If we tried to build what we have today the first time, we would have built it wrong. We would have solved the wrong problem. So taking it in steps also greatly minimizes the risk of solving the wrong problem or not doing anything a user wants anyway. So starting with the pace list validated that people wanted to pray. And there was friction in the process of remembering to pray for people. Giving people the ability to send an anonymous prayer request validated the fact that people would do that. And so we built on that. So my team's going to listen to this and probably correct me. It was probably at least 2 years. And in part because that wasn't the only thing we were working on, but also intentionally, because if you get ahead of your skis and spend money before you've really learned what the user needs, you're likely to spend a lot of money unnecessarily. It would be unwise to go try to build this before Easter.
It's good. That's real good. And it's important too, because, you guys have done such a good job in taking, when most of us think of an app, we're thinking just about content distribution. That's legitimately it. We're thinking, okay, how can we get our sermons in people's pockets? You guys have taken it a step further. I mean, I don't want to say one step further. I mean, you guys have charged down the field in terms of creating community with this app. So much so that, I mean, I'm looking at these prayers. I mean, it's just so compelling to see how people are being so vulnerable and sharing their stuff. And the fact that you can instantly get feedback that people are praying for you. That's just powerful in a whole other way that I've not seen from any other church in terms of what we're doing with church online. That, Matt, I'm challenged just looking at this in a way of, not that I need the system tomorrow, but just, all right, what am I doing to push the envelope in terms of community building with my church and making sure that people are taking a step beyond just engaging with the platform and engaging with each other. Big win.
I mean, it's this humanistic approach, engagements, that two-way communication. The app is the thing that facilitates the communication, and something as simple as praying for the prayer request and allowing the person with the prayer request to be ministered to, but then turn around and minister to others once the prayer request is completed or answered. I mean, that is such a beautiful idea of closing the loop, of making both sides be ministered, of engaging in this prayer request. It's awesome.
We think about spiritual growth, especially for adults. I'm no expert in either spiritual growth or adult learning. So all I'm doing is connecting dots and parroting what people way smarter than me have told me. Adults only grow or learn something new when they need to use it. So we don't do well as adults just learning facts for fact's sake. And we typically, in the terms of betterment, when we want to make ourselves better, we grow best and fastest when we're actually contributing to someone else's growth. So this is that old adage of, like, the best way to learn something is to try to teach it. The prayer in the app is a simplified example, but I'm contributing to someone else, praying for them, doing something that is maybe a simple act, but maybe it's the first time I've ever done it. It's happening for me. You're learning something along the way. And the same thing is true in the Bible portion, very intentionally. You're able to contribute something and get something at the same time. And so you're doing, ideally, we're tapping into learning and growth at the moment the user wants it, not the moment that is scheduled by the church.
That's good.
Or determined by the church what the learning should be. The user has some choice. And these platforms are good for that. And also, we need some of the other church platforms, like a weekend service, where the church is actually following through in its biblical duties to teach the whole canon of the Bible. And you might not know you need this, but we want to teach this to you. And that's critically important to my development as well. But having both together are two pieces of the same puzzle. And when they fit together, you get the bigger picture, I think.
Yep. That's so important. The 1 hour on Sunday is necessary. I don't want to paint the picture. I never want to paint the picture that it's not. It's a great opportunity to gather together in a physical community and drive forward. But when that 1 hour is the only thing, that's where it becomes problematic.
You're missing out on a lot.
Yeah. There's 168 hours a week, and great, we took care of one. Bad news is that attendance is going down, and we're missing some of these other tentpole opportunities to help disciple someone and get them to another level. and that rich level of discipleship's not happening in a larger, experience like that, something that is one-way driven communication as opposed to a conversation or interaction, even via a mobile app where you've got multiple people communicating, back and forth with each other. So Matt, man, this has been beautiful. By the way, I just totally want to acknowledge that the whole Apple podcast or the earbuds totally tied back in. I didn't mean that way at all, but this idea of it took versions of it to get to it, and the problem that we needed to get to, like it's all. So, Tim, if you're out there, I apologize for yelling at you towards the AirPods 2.0.
I don't. I love my AirPod Pros. Good job, Tim. And
Yes.
I'm gonna keep yelling at you if it keeps making good things. I apologize for nothing.
Awesome. So hey, let's land the plane and wrap up. Ray, just any thoughts as we're landing here?
This is so powerful. And Matt, I want to applaud what you and what Crossroads and what your leadership have done. This is phenomenal. And really, this is just even coming from somebody as simple as not just a pastor, but as a member of a small group. So often in groups, somebody gives a prayer request, man, and I've been convicted of this. I've done a better job of this lately. There's no follow-up. You know what I'm saying? There's no like, hey, so how did that go? Or was it answered? What Matt and Crossroads Church, what they've done is they've created this wonderful app where not only are people giving prayer requests, not only people are in community, but they're getting followed up with in a practical way so that people can rejoice or mourn together and carry out all the commands of scriptures in a digital environment. And this goes beyond just creating content, and it drives towards what Church Online is supposed to be about, which is about building the community, not just building compelling content, but building a community that's enveloped in the gospel, that's going out there and it's practically changing people's lives. And so grateful to have seen this. Matt, thanks for introducing this into our lives. And I hope more and more churches and even church app developers continue to think towards this direction as we move forward.
Awesome. Matt, any thoughts on your end?
I'm so thankful for you guys, the way that you're helping all of us connect with each other, learn at the same time. There's no way to do this on your own. You can't be a lone wolf person out on the pioneer trying to create the future. And so we need each other to do this. And it's just exciting to be a part of it.
Awesome. Hey, man, Matt, thank you for that, by the way, but it's been a really good podcast. There are vendors out there that need to build this prayer functionality into their mobile apps. There are churches that need to start to request features and drive some stuff towards the vendors just to get more feature sets and more engaging features in place. Let's get beyond that 1 hour on Sunday and realize that the mobile app has far more features, 168 hours a week. The thing that nailed this entire podcast for me was your phrase, Matt, of engagement versus reach, and that with the mobile app we are pushing for engagement as opposed to reaching. It's not the website, let the website reach and that's easy, but with engagement with the mobile app, getting people to interact, getting them to talk to, getting them to engagement's such a bad word.
We're after a conversation, not just a one-way conversation with our people, but a two-way conversation with them. And that's what you guys have. So you've done such a great job in creating is you have a way to not just talk at your people, but to receive stuff back from them and to interact with them in such a great way. So job well done, man.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
So we're going to wrap. Thank you for kind of setting the tone with that. And I hope and pray you guys continue to do so. We're going to have to bring you back down the road and hear what else you guys are working on with that. And Crossroads is a great church, so we're excited to see everything that you guys are doing in the Cincinnati, Ohio, and now Kentucky. You slipped that one in too. You're now multistate, multisite church, which is a whole other thing too. But
that's right.
For Matt, for Ray, this is Jeff. Thanks for jumping here on the Church Digital Podcast, and we'll see you next time. Y'all have a good day.